Now everything here is meant for model building, scratch building, sanding, pretty much everything to do with model making up until painting, as well as my secondary PC down here. Now this has most of my tools as well as consumables, as we can see up here. So this is just a standard kitchen IKEA table with extending legs. So right now it's at standing height. To try and help myself keep my builds a little tidier, I've been putting them in easy to build containers. So this is my RX 785 build, currently on hiatus while I finish some of the other projects. And this is the Verlogic build, working on some of the scratch building and detail elements. Hopefully going to priming soon. This is my main work area. I've also got these two twin lamps mounted up so I can orient them in any configuration I need. So I can point these right at what I'm working on, as well as magnifying lens. Ooh. Provides a pretty decent amount of light here. I just mounted one to each side. I plan on eventually getting more of those for the other desk. Then I mounted a shelf at the back here to give me some workspace underneath, as well as countertop for some generic use items. And I installed some plastic pegboard on both of these walls. Alright, so here's my most commonly used tools. Here we've got my main cutting implements. So we've got some X-Acto blades and chisels, a X-Acto blade saw, large one, small one, and some pin vices. My main scribing and detailing tools on the other side. So a few EMC chisels with a few more up there. Mia Scriber 2. And some additional needle chisels. So this one's from Wave. I use this one quite a bit for doing some initial scribing and then going over with some of the other tools, namely the chisels. But it's really good for the initial block out for shapes. And then another chisel that has a more of a bevel on the end here, so it makes some wider grooves. And I will be expanding this collection in the future. Hopefully some better X-Acto blades, more chisels, and maybe some different brands of scribers. Moving on, we've got an assortment of files. While I lack in quality, I have quite a variety of shapes. So I've got a bunch of flat ones, triangular shape, round, and then like half round on the other side, square, as well as some larger files. And a few much larger files here. I don't use these all the time, but I'd use them occasionally. As well as my three main nippers, or just some Tamiya nippers. And I use these for more precise, smaller detail work. And I've got some, actually don't know what brand these are, but these are for kind of all-purpose use, and they work pretty well. As well as more heavy-duty nippers to start using this to like gouge out more larger chunks of detail or cutting larger pieces. And then finally, the other piece of the main modeling tools. There's quite a variety here, but I've got sanding sticks, sanding sponges, and some sandpaper, and some wet sandpaper. And they come in a variety of bendable and more rigid sanding sticks for more planar surfaces. Now moving on to some of the tools I use under the shelf here. The Chopper 2. This is super handy for scratch building. If you don't have one of these, I recommend you pick one up. If you plan on doing any work with claw plate or customizing parts for Gunpla or other projects, you can use these extra parts to cut at various angles as well. And it's also got these arms here to lock these in. We've got some epoxy putty. Use that for filling in larger gaps, sculpting details. You can see me use that on the Batik Eye project, as well as on this project here. You can actually see some putty there. Now I've got some different masking solutions: Masking Neo, Mr. Masking Sol, Microset, Microsol for decals, water slides, Mark Softer, Mark Setter, again for water slide decals. Two other super important tools when it comes to scratch building: Tamiya Extra Thin Cement and Tamiya Cement. This is for a little bit more rare cases, but if you have some larger parts, this comes in super handy. Primarily I use Tamiya Extra Thin Cement for welding all of the plastic parts together. There's also some Milliput back there, a jar of baby powder that goes with super glue, as well as some different Tamiya Putty White, more super glue, and we've got some more Tamiya epoxy putty and light curing putty. Also have these tools here, these 1, 2, 3 blocks. They're very useful. If you need something with a lot of weight to weigh it down. They're also very precise right angles, and conveniently measures 1 by 2 by 3 inches high, so they're a really handy measuring instrument. Now up here I've got a set of alligator clips, like some extra hands, some plastic part separators, a pin vise. I've got some extra containers here with a bunch of extra plot plate. Can come in handy quite a bit if you need some extra shapes. And this is for water slide decals. You fill in this with water, and when you drop the decal in here, it'll get wet, and once it's about to lift off the back, you can pull this out, the water will drain, and you'll be able to pick up your water slide a little bit easier. There's tools and consumables up here, various rulers. And I have this wave cutter, and it's used to cut plot plate rods, which are conveniently right up here. There's various thicknesses and diameters. And again, those are by wave, as well as some evergreen styrene parts. Some various thicknesses and shapes here. Some square and rods there as well. Drill bits for a Dremel. There are some magnets from high cube parts of various sizes, all the way back to some extremely tiny magnets there. I've got some extra chisels here. There's some Kotobukiya parts here. Just some extra thruster bells, details, handles, vents for customizing builds and stuff. Here is the Hasegawa tri-tool. Now down here we've got some Dymo tape, some I think pin striping tape, and just some extra X-Acto blades. Now at the top here, I've got a bunch of metallic parts from JAO Parts. There's some various minus mold, some smaller ones. These are some bead shaped and Vulcan cannon shaped parts, as well as some hydraulic metal parts, and some miscellaneous tube and gun barrel and spike parts. And here we've got some photo etch detail, very small, but some circular detail there. These other ones are from high cube parts, round and hexagonal detail, some Gunpla builder parts, some vents, various sizes, Tamiya sandpaper, finishing abrasives of various types. I think anywhere from a couple hundred to 2,000, as well as some micro finishing cloth. Sanding sticks here from Wave. There's two different types. There's a flexible one and a rigid one. Like I think anywhere from 180 grit to I think 1200 is the highest I've got here. Last couple items, just some high quality scissors, pen, another pin vise, sanding sticks behind that, I believe. That is a set of digital calipers. Now, not only can you set specific measurements for this, these are also very useful for scribing detail. So let's say you have a piece of plow plate. You can run the edge along the outside and it'll carve a line parallel to that line. So you can get a straight line in the middle of the surface, and you just have to expand this and set the desired gap. Or if you even have a curved edge, you can follow along the other edge. The only other thing I have is the drawers here. So I just got some extra parts here, some extra storage boxes for maybe if I get into some LED work, or in the middle of a build if I've got some tiny parts I need to keep track of. Additional sandpaper, finishing cloths, and other sanding sticks, and extra wet sandpaper, a drawer of LEDs. These are where I store my paints, so I can just pull the paints out that I need, bring them over to the other desk. Super useful. These are Mr. Hobby lacquer paints, various colors. Colors there. Tamiya acrylics, again of various colors. Then I have some custom mixed paints and extra empty bottles. Some all-clad metallics and a Mr. Color surface primer. This is kind of the weathering drawer. I've got some oil paints for oil weathering and rendering. I've got some Tamiya weathering sets for adding soot, and dirt, and dust. I've got some Mr. Weathering Color enamel stains, various types and colors. Panel line colors from Tamiya, some gray and black. Testors enamels and a few enamel washes from MIG, as well as some all-clad surface primers, gray, black, white, and some Tamiya rattle cans that were gifted to me. I've got this case here for extra joint parts. Kind of super handy for customizing and building your own joints. Got them semi-sorted into their different functions. But these are really handy to take out. I can just use them as I need and then put them back when I'm all done. So that's pretty much it for the modeling desk. Alright, so here's the painting desk. So we've got the spray booth, a Pash 20 by 22 by 16 spray booth, which just vents to the window right there when it's in use. This turns on with the switch in the back. And for the moment I just have this lamp clipped here to get some really bright light on the subject matter. And I've just coated it with paper and some cardstock to help protect the actual metal surface from getting too dirty over time. The Iwata Smart Jet Pro, and it has 2 feeds here, so I can hook up 2 individual brushes with unique pressure settings, as well as a pressure release in the back for quick changing. And as he is, it's not too loud. And once the compressor fills up with air, it turns off. And to go along with that, I'm using the Iwata Eclipse HPCS with a preset handle. And that lets me set a specific amount of air, so all I have to do is press down, and I'll get a consistent airflow. So I can adjust that up and down while I'm working and have quite a bit of consistency. For the airbrush, I use the Iwata cleaning station. For my consumables, some degreaser, which is essentially purple power, some good old Pledge acrylic floor wax for glossy acrylic coats, hairspray for salt chipping and paint chipping techniques, some alcohol for cleaning, Mr. Color thinner for lacquer painting, some mineral spirits, and then just some extra bottles for water, Windex, and pre-mixed flat coat, lighter fluid for panel lining, toothpicks, always handy for something, airbrush cleaner, Tamiya lacquer thinner, acrylic thinner, and some all-clad airbrush cleaner. Testors enamel thinner, acrylic paint retarder. Can't get enough Q-tips of various types and sizes. I've got a pointy end and a fat end for cleaning, some larger pointed ones, and some very small ones as well. Also really useful for cleaning the airbrush. And then just a bunch of generic, smaller sized ones. I think these were from Muji. Then I tend to use eyedroppers instead of paint stick and pouring. And then just some decal scissors, another pin vise, and a bunch of tweezers for decal and other work. One area I'm sorely lacking in are good brushes. At one point some of these were considered good, but I've kind of run them through the ringer. They're also super useful when it comes to weathering for doing dry brushing and other tasks. Eventually I'll get some better brushes for doing like oil rendering, but for now these ones work, as well as just some toothbrushes for cleaning when stripping parts. And like the other desks, I installed another shelf. I've got some plastic paint bins here, some smaller metal ones, and some plastic pegboard, which currently just has blue tack. It's super useful for fitting things, for masking. It's one of the most useful tools. Tamiya masking tape, as well as some smaller ones. I've also picked up some of these ball bearings from Mr. Hobby, and these are also really useful for putting in paint bottles. Here in the flat container I put in, I think, 3 of the bearings. You shake it, it'll help break up the paint a lot faster. Tamiya cotton swabs, an extra palette brush for weathering, and a bunch of extra alligator clips in wood and some plastic size. These ones are from Haiku Parts. Also have a collection of pre-built ones from just alligator clips and bamboo skewers of long and short variety. So I think it's good to have an all-around variety of different types and sizes, as well as just having plain bamboo sticks and just using glue tack or tape for parts that are too delicate or too small to use the alligator clips on. Black nitrile gloves. I can wear these for quite a while and they don't get uncomfortable. They don't react with any of the chemicals I currently use, and they last quite a long time. So that's pretty much it for the painting station. I'll later on expand to have some additional shelving units below as I get more tools. But I do have some storage for some extra claw plate and some miscellaneous containers for spare parts. And then I've got another box here of some really old kits. Gundam Wing kits. My old Sazabi that's been split up for parts that I'll probably salvage for other builds in the future. Keeping old kits on hand for spare parts is super handy. Eventually I'll upgrade to having the other style lamps. I still have this old lamp. This is probably 15 years old, I think. Oh, and that's a spider. So the other last note here is when you're painting, please, please, please use a respirator mask. I've got this one from 3M, and so this will take care of most paints and chemicals that you might come across when doing regular scale model painting. Also remember to periodically upgrade your filters because these will expire. Be sure to have a couple extra packs on hand to change it every few months, or if you paint like every day, change it a little more often. I've got some standard goggles there to help protect the eyes.